Welcome to Two Humans Talking, the podcast that discusses how to stay healthy in this modern, fast paced world. I'm Tiffany, and today I am here with Dr. Patricia, and we're going to talk about burnout, how to be all the things that is required of being a woman, and how to navigate this very fast paced, sometimes over demanding world that we live in. And so, before we hop into that chat, Patricia, why don't you tell, who are you? Where do you live? What do you do? What makes you you?
Yes. Hi, Tiffany. So happy to be here. So I'm an integrative women's health expert. And for those who haven't heard that buzzword, essentially it's a combo of East and West medicine and everything in between. And the driving force, my personal driving force is to get to the root cause, because if you change the root, you change the fruit. I'm based in Tucson, so I have my brick and mortar integrative center called Thrive Life Center. And I also serve women globally through coaching, through healing sessions, to get you really out of the survival mode, and not out of, because survival mode is essential, but kind of leaning more towards the thriving mode. That's why
Oh,
it's Thrive Life Center. Yeah, that's
I
it.
love that. I
Yes.
also very similar. Like, let's get you out of survival and into thriving. Like, there's a time and a place to just hustle and grind to get to the next step, but that can't be here forever. Like, that's
Right.
a season, that's a blip
Yeah.
in the timeline. And I love that you talked about bringing it back to you, like the
Mm.
integrative part of how do we look at you as a whole person. I wrote down change the root, change the fruit. I
Mm.
love that because I always talk about let's stop slapping band-aids on your gunshot wound. Like, let's actually deal with the reasons that you lose control around food, or that you use food as a way to self-soothe, or that why you're avoiding the exercise, or why you think you have to exercise X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And really let's get into how to reprogram your habits. And so I love hearing other women out in the world doing very similar things.
Yeah.
Um, because I think it's more important. And I think the more you and I talk about it, the more it becomes the common narrative. And
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer like the woo woo crunchy thing. And
Right.
it's just like the way of life for everyone.
Yes. Yes.
Have you always wanted to do this type of work? Like the whole integrative medicine? Or was there something in your own life where you're like, something's got to change because I can't keep living like this?
Yeah. I mean, unconsciously, I think as a child, yes. The term integrative medicine didn't even land on my consciousness until I graduated from medicine, which was the driving force of here I am, had my MD degree, and I graduate from medical school completely burnt out.
Hmm.
Like I was in my worst shape physically, emotionally, spiritually. And, thinking, okay, I'm going to go to med school with the mission of medicine is universal, it's timeless. That's how I can serve humanity. But I come out of it um not really knowing how to heal people. I know how to diagnose, I know how to order things, do prescription, which is essentially symptom reduction, which is not terrible, but it's only the first step. It's not really complete resolution or change or transformation. And I was the product of that. Like I just felt horrible on all levels, mind, body, spirit. And so I was in a search of this cannot just be it. Um, and thankfully, when you ask, you shall receive. And I found my mentors, and one by one, I felt amazing. Honestly, within a span of 3 to 4 months, I went from a size 16 to a size 4. And I didn't even intend to lose weight. I was just feeling eh. But when I shifted mindset, movement, breath work, visualization, the weight was just the third dimensional expression of what I was feeling internally.
Isn't
Um,
it amazing
yeah.
how when you learn, when you take a minute and you learn to regulate your nervous system, how all of a
Mhm.
sudden your body lets go of all the things it didn't need?
Right. Absolutely. And so, yeah, it was transformational, and it never ended. Like I'm still, of course, a student of life, student of healing. Mm,
Yeah, I
mhm.
love that. I think a lot of women have a very similar story. Maybe it wasn't med school, but there was something where they were grinding and they were hustling and they were pouring from everything they had to just stay afloat, to try to keep their nose above the water. And they didn't really know what else to do because they wanted to be successful, but everything was like out of harmony and out of whack.
Yes.
And for a lot of women, I know that the ones that I work with, it's just like there's this feeling of like, I can't keep doing this, but I don't actually know what to do differently because I can't drop the ball.
Right.
And I was there too. I used to work, I worked in commercial nuclear power. I was a nuclear chemist for 12 and a half years. And before I changed careers, and it was very high stress, high demand, like male dominated. Like there was no room for ebb and flow or for you to be a person. And I had to learn how to hold I had to one figure out what my own boundaries were of like me as a person. I had to stop. I didn't know I was doing it, but when I look back, it was like I went from Tiffany who lived on all these separate islands to figuring out how to bring all the islands together and be a whole Tiffany. And that, when I look back, was super transformational, recognizing that I wasn't just my work when I was at work, and I wasn't just a family person and a friend when I was at home, and I wasn't just this person worried about her health when she was eating and moving her body, but I had to figure out how to that for them all to come together harmoniously. And that was a really big change for me that made a really big difference. What
Right.
about you? Like, how did you make that? What did that transition look like for you?
I mean, that state of survival mode was essentially like 10 years until like I've had enough. Um, and like I said, but at the same time, once I was ready, and this is so true for a lot of my clients. When you're ready and ripe, it's as easy as just
Flipping a switch.
easier than what you think. Like a lot of my weight loss, a lot of my hormone issue clients burnout, they're like, I feel like I tried everything. Like I did all these supplements, I did all this meditation, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, there's just that switch. And it's actually not the doing or the pushing, kind of that masculine energy. There's
It's
like,
almost like let me change my sunglasses out, right?
exactly,
As soon
right,
as you put that like new lens on with those new
yeah,
intentions,
right. It's not
sometimes you're doing the same actions, but the intention is different, and then you end up a different place than you
right,
originally thought you were going, which ends up being so magical.
right, right, right. Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Patricia, what do you really like for the woman who's feeling burnt out and exhausted and nothing is coming together in her life?
Mm-hmm.
What's your blueprint? Like what's your secret sauce helping her get through that?
I mean, I have many frameworks, to see what would be a good root nipper for a person, but there could be like maybe three essential things. One, you're sovereign, you're fully in control, versus being victimized. There's a thing called the triangle of trauma or drama, where you feel like you're a victim, you're helpless. So the narrative could be like, I know it's up to God, or that's just how my husband is, or I just can't anymore. So feeling helpless, feeling like you're an infant, flipping the narrative to being a creator. Like how can you create on top of that what you already know what to be true? So awareness of where you stand, whether you're a victim or a villainizer. Do you villainize things a lot? Meaning like you point outwards like, no, it's my genes. Hear that a lot in my medical practice. No, no, no. That's why I can't lose weight. It's my genes. That's why my cholesterol is high, because it's my genes. Or it's my husband. It's my children. It's my work. It's my boss. Like it's their fault why you're burnt out. Versus, again, owning it, you're sovereign. How can you see that as a challenge rather than a villain? And then the
Yes.
third trauma, which a lot of women, mothers, and empaths suffer, is being the hero archetype. Like, oh, no, 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 let me do it. Okay, I got you. You take more responsibility than you should. So you become this martyr, and then your energy gets sucked out. So these are the people who empathize too much and forget to empathize themselves.
Mm. You know, it's something that was a really big mental shift for me that I want to share for the listener is when you're going, oh, no, 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 that's how I love people. That's how I show up. That's how I give myself meaning. It's actually you manipulating all of the situations because you're doing those things to even if you don't recognize it, to like get something from them. You want them to see you a certain way. You want to be able to use that as a crutch for why you are avoiding some other things that you might be not paying attention to because you have to do all of these things. And it's actually when you're over serving and not actually taking care of yourself, it's a form of manipulation. And that doesn't sit well for
And it's
someone
hard
who is,
to hear that. It's hard to hear that, like, but I'm trying to do good, like me, I'm hearing that, it's hard because me being a doctor, the savior, the hero, the martyr archetype is very much alive. But to give yourself grace, it's all, most of it, 90% is unconscious programming. It's
yep,
like what we've learned from 0 to 7 years old, things that we've picked up unconsciously and triggers the brain and kind of rewards you neurochemically, anyway, but of course also spiritually and physically. So
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like when I do this, I receive love. When I do this, someone praises me. When I do this, they're not paying attention, but deep down inside, I'm gonna like put my fork in the, I don't know what metaphor I was going with there. My staff in the ground, right? And I'm gonna know that I'm doing all these things and people aren't appreciating me, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna sink into that resentment of why no one sees me. And it's
Right. I
like,
love that word, resentment, because that's where it pendulums toward. By the time
yes,
where the juice of helping runs out, then you can go into the tendency of resenting it because now
yeah.
you're so tired.
And then the whole time to realize it's a really hard mirror to stand in front of, realizing that you are the cause of your suffering.
Nobody else.
No one else. And it's like, no, 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 because it's like either there was a skill you didn't identify that you needed to learn, or there's a boundary you didn't know how to hold or establish. There's something that you were doing that allowed all of those things to happen, whether it was subconsciously or consciously, for whatever result you were going for. And it's like, that's a really hard pill to swallow.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard because you become a victor the moment you really choose the concept that it is all your choice.
Yes. But and at the same time, it can, that is such an empowering thing too, because it's like,
Exactly.
okay, if I take ownership of everything that is
Own it.
true in my life, then that means I'm gonna have to show up as a different person because you can't talk to me like that. I have to show up as a different person because I don't like the way I feel every time I eat that thing. And that means I need to take ownership of not eating the thing. Not because someone told me it was bad or wrong, but because I'm saying that when I partake in that food, that activity, I don't like what happens to me and the person I am. And that is empowering because that means you can fix literally anything going on.
Anything. That's why, like, the moment you take ownership and 100% responsibility, you flip the narrative. You become the creator. Everything becomes a challenge and can be exciting. Like, challenge accepted.
I love
You
this.
want to be upgraded? You want to be transformed? Challenge accepted. You want to be not the hero, but a facilitator? That's a totally different thing.
Oh, I
Like,
like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that identity. Like I'm gonna be this facilitator of
Yep.
my own life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good one. That's an identity that I haven't used. I'm gonna store that away because I can think of some women right now where I'm like, those are the right words for them.
Right, right. So instead of being the hero, the like the rescuer, the martyr, you facilitate, because when you're a facilitator, you see already you have the capacity to do that. I'm here only to facilitate and witness, but you do the thing. I
Mm,
can't take that responsibility from you.
yeah. I saw a reel this morning that really gave words to feelings I've had before. And it was part of healing and overcoming the burnout or healing your relationship with food or whatever the thing is, your relationships with people, is accepting that part of that journey is that you will be misunderstood.
Oh my gosh.
And
So
I was like,
can you
I was
tell? Absolutely. I want, can I share one personal story that just happened
absolutely please.
last night? And just to maybe remind everyone, we're all going through the same thing. The struggle is there, but the rewards are also there. And when you were saying like over demand life and boundaries. So yesterday I had a client who was texting and asking like, hey, can you send me this prescription? Can you call me when you have a minute? And um she was sick. And I lovingly reminded her the proper channels of like texting is not a form of medical advice, and I'm sorry you're sick, this is the link where you can book, I want to do my due diligence, kind of enforcing my boundaries around my time and energy and respecting her time and energy. And her response was, okay, whatever, you were never there for me. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I get it, like I get it. And then she was like lashing out already, like you were never there for me, blah blah blah. And this is why a lot of women and people find it also hard to enforce boundary, because this is exactly the interaction that you need to be prepared of for. When people are still in the victim consciousness of someone needs to be my hero. Why aren't you there for me, hero? Why can't you sacrifice your personal time and energy just so you can call me? People are so triggered when you're so good at your boundaries.
Yeah. It's true. I love that you said that too. You said enforce. It's not our job. This was something that was a really big mental shift for me. I used to think boundaries were something I forced on people, but boundaries are things that are my lines in the sand that are my responsibility to hold. And that
Right.
doesn't mean forcing someone to treat me a certain way or to do a thing. It means being okay removing myself from situations that are not respecting my boundary with no arguments, no explanations, no anything, but just I had a friend, her name's Dr. Linda, and she gave me this really cool visual. And it was like, imagine we were at a retreat. She gave us hula hoops and we had to hold them. And she was like, everything inside of the hula hoop are your personal boundaries. You get to decide how far away you put that hula hoop between you and the next person and how close you let it get. But it's never the other person's job to get in your hula hoop. It's your job to decide where that goes and if you have to move yourself because they keep pushing that outer the hula hoop part of it, right? If they're coming in and you're going, then you've got to move, like you got to take responsibility of that. And that visual changed a lot of things for how I was interacting with people and released a lot of anxiety and anger and resentment that I was developing as I was trying to find my way and let go of some of my people pleasing and some of my like just wanting to be loved and seen and do whatever it takes stuff that I had. And so I wanted to share that because I know how much that helped me and I'm hoping that maybe that visual will help someone who's listening right now too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard sometimes to take responsibility for the boundaries that you are lovingly enforcing for yourself.
Yes.
Because not everyone will resonate with that.
Right. And it's,
And it's not your their reaction is not your responsibility.
yep.
Your
Sometimes
yeah. Mm-hmm.
sometimes us learning that is being misunderstood as us enforcing our, as being aggressive or over self-confident and like cocky or distant, and it's like those are all those little miscommunications and those misunderstandings that we have to let other people feel but not feel responsible for.
Right.
Now if you're being a jerk, like yes, you need to take responsibility of that. You do
Yeah.
have to have awareness
Right.
and you know what I mean, but it doesn't mean that you have to wear every jacket that someone tries to hand you.
Exactly. So clearly communicating your needs is my hula hoop in a loving and empathetic and compassionate manner.
Love that.
You know, like you just express your needs and own it and let go if not everyone is on the same boat.
Yeah, yeah, oh, that's another one. That's a really hard experience to go through of learning that it's not selfish and it's not rude and it's not heartless to just recognize that people come in and out of your life for different reasons and different seasons. And sometimes it's okay to say thank you for everything to this moment. And now I bless and release this relationship or this
Right,
friendship or
right,
whatever
right.
it is.
Yeah. And sometimes what helps me like visualize, sometimes I'm an audio processor and I love like the emotional frequency scale, like resonance and whatnot. So I think of a song
Oh,
and she's just not in my tune. I'm also not in her tune. So I don't want to mess up her song.
I love that.
So we're just not in harmony. It's not that she's a bad person or I'm a bad person. We're just not singing the same song. So same
I
thing,
love that so much.
like it we're just a like the hertz that you're oscillating with is just different and we cannot force resonance. We cannot force alignment. And that is a big, big personal story for me because here I am, I'm a first generation immigrant, and you know how people are wired to like people who look like them, who talk, look like themselves. And there was a lot of me trying to fit into different music that was just not beating my drum. And now I'm like, I
You're
have
like,
a song,
this is my tune.
you know?
I I love this metaphor so much because, like, I had that. I'm like, let it fly, like, however you move, because you'll
Yeah.
attract the same weirdos.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And they're not weirdos, they're your people. They're the people that
Right,
get you.
right.
And sometimes it's okay to change the song in your own tune. And that
Yeah.
doesn't make you a bad person either.
Yeah, or inauthentic. Like you just want to try it out, right? Like sing a
Yeah.
different song. Yeah.
Everyone wants to force you into a box, and that's your box to live in for the rest of your life. And
Yes.
it's just not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true. And I don't know about you, but do you find in your practice that people are surprised at how much you talk about everything but the food and the exercise?
Yes. And they're surprised how much I'm handing them the power.
Yeah. They're like, that's not
They're
what I
like
signed up
confused, like,
for.
yeah, cognitive dissonance. Like, wait, what? You're not prescribing me and not being prescriptive.
You're
You're
not
not
giving me the
telling me
diuretic and the
a
exact meal
to-do
plan. Wait.
list. Yeah, you're not giving me a to-do list. Like, what? We're getting
Yeah.
into the energetics and the mindset, and like they're so confused. But of course, we want the dopaminergic side of us, like, okay, do this, do that, do that. I give that in 5 minutes. That's like easy.
And at the same time, that checklist that you think you need is the exact reason you're not making progress
Right.
because it's not coming from within you. You're not making the mind body connection between how, when every time I'm in this interaction, this is how I feel, I need to change things up, or every time I eat this, my stomach hurts. Maybe that's not a good food for me. Or I actually really hate this form of working out, guess what? There's a million other workouts. Go try something else to
Yes.
move your body intentionally. And so I always, especially on this podcast, I'm always like, I get like, you never talk about like the actual weight loss part. You're always talking about your feelings and interactions and boundaries and like, when are you going to tell us how to lose weight? And it's like, I want you to hear me right
I
now.
100% agree with you. And sometimes, yeah, I doubt the process of like, should I just give them like the how-tos, but at the same time, that's so
Oh, that's what Google's for.
easy,
And it's not working. So if you're listening to us right now, I really, really want you to hear me right now. It's all of the things you think are either taking priority or don't matter. It's the life part that is the reason you're stuck in a body that's not working for you right now. You've got to resolve all the other stuff because most likely you're leaning into the food as a way to self regulate or to avoid or to connect with other people in an unhealthy way. And your nervous system is probably all jacked up from all of the stress, and your hormones aren't being produced properly because your cortisol's through the roof, which causes your like munchy hormones that make you hungry and you can't stop eating get overproduced at the wrong time. And so it's like, if we can help you get your life in order, your health follows suit. Like, it's all connected. We got to stop pretending it's not.
Yeah. And mind is master, like whatever how we perceive and what lens and eyeglasses you're wearing is what drives the neurochemistry down below. That's why
Mm.
I always like start with mindset, emotional intelligence, and just to kind of piggyback on that with like we talk about like, everything else except really what to do with weight loss. Just a study called Radical Remissions, not exactly about weight loss, but it's a retrospective study looking back at hundreds and hundreds of cancer patients who were about to die, like blessed by their oncologist. You need to go on palliative hospice, there's nothing we can do, you're about to die, who were able to go radical remission and feel even better before they had cancer. And so the
Mm.
researchers were like, what did they do right? And there were like, I think, 7 common habits that they had. There were many habits. The first two, radically shifting the way they move. The body keeps score, makes sense. A lot of people get also lost with like what exercise, what movement. But sure, there is data on that. Number two, radically shifting the way they eat. So of course, more anti-inflammatory diet. This is the first two things that people become so lost in. That's the two. The rest of the 5 or 7 habits, maybe it was 9. I keep forgetting. But the rest of the 90% of the habit was psycho-emotional.
Mm.
Trauma, things like forgiveness, letting go of anger, acceptance. So all these like trauma work, when you really go into it, that is the major part of the recipe, not the food, not the movement, because how you approach food and how you store information in your body is informed by the trauma of the psycho-emotional health.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
always
that.
remind my patients, like, you get so lost with what to eat. Is it organic? Like, you go in the semantics of it and not really, you're missing the point. Like, if you're psycho-emotionally like, life is so good, you're in your oxytocin, you're like orgasmic all the time, then no matter what you eat, you know how people are like, how can she be so thin and glowing? She smokes, she drinks. It's so unfair. That's why I'm not saying smoke and drink.
She's like, wait a second, time out, disclaimer.
So anyway, yeah.
I love that. I'm not, I'm going to ask you a question, and you're allowed to
Yeah.
say, like, I really don't want to. But I think that it's important sometimes, especially for those of us who are the go-tos and the people who are leading the way for others, to be a real person too, just to normalize that we all cycle through our own stuff and have to like relearn or heal. What's the thing right now that you personally are like re-exploring for yourself in this next version of your healthiest self?
Great question. I mean, I'm human too. Like I said, that triangle of drama or trauma, I still go through that. Like I see myself becoming a hero. I see myself villainizing my husband when I'm feeling shit. Sorry, can I say
You're
that?
good.
You
That
know,
was real.
villainizing my children, my house. So how do I get out of the drama and how do I become more self-compassionate? One of my go-to is reminding myself two things. I am made of elements and nature.
Mm.
Water, I am air, I'm earth, I'm mineral. So I tend to nourish myself back in harmony with nature because that's my mother. And then number two, I deeply believe I'm divine. So kind of connecting to the greater mind, whether that's quantum, whether that's God, and when I'm becoming human, when I'm triggered myself, I try to tap into kind of the greater mind. So some people would call that in the David Hawkins emotional frequency scale. It could be the enlightenment frequency, which is like 800 whatever hertz, which is similar to orgasmic frequency. The orgasm, like everything is like fluid. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. You shared what your current, like the things that you currently are going through, and then you shared how you're handling it within yourself. And since you bravely shared, I'll share what mine is right now. For
Mm.
me, it's really giving myself to space and acceptance to re-heal things that I thought I took care of, and
Mm.
recognizing that life is not a one and done healing thing, but
Oh,
every day I am literally a new person with new experiences behind me. In that today's version of Tiffany hasn't dealt with that trauma, and that those crevices are really deep. And to not be so frustrated with myself when things that I thought I handled creep back up.
absolutely.
Have to learn how to go through them, because now it's like I am at a different stage. I have different experiences, different expectations, different tools in my tool belt to handle. I see the world a lot differently. And it's like, oh, I got to go through that all over again
Right.
from a different lens to resolve it from here so that it doesn't become my ceiling again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
That
agree.
was that has been something that's been popping up. It's just like, oh, nope, time out, Tiff.
Yep.
Pause. All right, we're feeling it. We're feeling it really big. We're not going to go into the old habits we used to soothe this because we have new tools.
Mm-hmm.
And what would my best self do in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's writing this just sounds so silly, but sometimes it's just as simple as writing a love letter to myself,
Mm-hmm.
telling myself like how proud I am and how proud I am of that person I was, because she got me through some really hard shit, and that I got it from here with these things mm, with the things that I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's okay. And so for me, that's one of those ones that's been coming up as I've been going to the next level and the next level and the next level.
I love that. So kind of deeply connecting to that version of you that got you through it and
Yeah.
affirming her. Yeah. Yeah.
And letting go of the habits that help me survive, because
Mm.
now I have new habits that are going to help me thrive in the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Healing is definitely non-linear, you know?
No, but we're taught that it should be, or at least that's the messaging we get, whether that's the people's actual intentions or if that's just with our limited scope of experience, what we take, the download we get, but it's not. It's ups and downs and backs and forwards. And like everything is figure outable, including whatever you're going through right now.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
as we're wrapping up, is there anything left on anything that's sitting on your heart right now that we didn't talk about that you wanted to share?
I thought I had it, and then I lost it.
It's because I asked you, I put you on the spot. It's because I called it out. How do people connect with you?
I'm The easiest way is to find me on my Facebook group called The Thriving Woman. So I host like free retreats there. I'm also on Instagram, Thrive Life Center, or visit my website, thrivewithdrpatricia.com.
I love that.
Yes.
Do you have a life motto or something like that that you want, a final thought you want to leave us with today?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. But I guess kind of my overarching classic one is we're divinely designed to heal. As simply as that.
I
It's
love that.
inside of us.
It's so true. The body was designed to heal. Oh, I love that. Thank you for being here with us today. Thanks for being with me today and having such a great conversation. And with that, that's Two Humans Talking. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.